Insert mode. How hard could it be to insert stuff? Well, it's not hard. But what could be involved? I mean, it's a mode. You type some stuff, and stuff shows up on the screen, and all the little interweb tubes all fit together, and everything's great. What's to know? Well, not too much. But you can do some stuff with insert mode that you might not be totally aware of. So let's have a look. First thing to look at, of course, and this is always true, is the help. And so I have loaded up the insert.txt help. Okay, read this. It's a couple thousand lines long. Skim it. I don't care. You know, do what you want. But there's a lot of good information in here, and I'm going to skim through this. I mean, I can't cover it all. It's all there. You know, I'm trying to help out, so I'm going to cover what I think is most useful and important, and you can pick and choose and decide that some other things are more important later. All right? One of the things that I want to talk about immediately is when we are talking about help. When we say we want help on something in insert mode, it's very helpful to say I want help on I_control-A. If I know I want to look at the control-A command sequence and I want to look at it specifically for insert mode, Vim has it set up so that is prefixed by an I_. So I hit that and I'm taken to the help for control-A, but specifically for insert mode. Okay? That's the help. So read that help. You know how to search for things specifically for insert mode. All right? Let's move on. Okay, so what we have here is I have a bunch of files that I want to take a look at, and we're going to use those. This is just some screwing around I did with some stuff earlier with some MIDI stuff, but it doesn't work, and I don't really care. It's really old. So what we're going to do is the first thing I want to discuss is that insert mode. There's always overlaps in Vim and overlaps. There you go. So there's some things you can do in insert mode, some key sequences that you can easily just exit, go to normal mode, and do, and then go back into insert mode. And there's always these bits of overlap in Vim. So anytime that you see something, you say, oh, okay, I can save a keystroke by doing that. For me, it's always a mental problem. I either know I can save a keystroke, or I can save a little bit of my memory, right? Because every time I learn something, I have to forget something else. The other day I learned something new in Vim. I can't remember what it is now, but because I forgot who my wife was, and so I had to remember who she was and toss out the new Vim information. It's just the way it is. So I a lot of the times will skip back to normal mode rather than save myself a couple of keystrokes. It's just the way I am. All right, so that's the first thing. Now let's take a look at some of the good bits and pieces. Insert mode is. There's a lot of options that can modify insert mode and how it behaves, and one of those things is called text width. So this is an automatic wrapping. It depends on how you set this. I mean, if you're just doing text or something like that, you know, just a text file, setting it to 80 is kind of nice. If you have code, sometimes 140 is kind of nice. We can see later that you can set this locally for a buffer. You can set it in an auto command when you go into certain file types and all this other stuff. So it doesn't have to be a global setting. I tend to set it for 80 for comments in my code, but the rest of the code is at 140 characters. So, you know, I mean, you can do interesting things with this stuff. That's one of them. The other thing is rather important, and it's called expand tab. This one turns literal tab characters into spaces. This is quite important for us as coders. We really like to have spaces instead of tabs. It's a bit of a religious thing, but most of the spaces instead of tabs guys seem to have won. So get used to it. Expand tab is very nice to have. You can set that in your vimrc. You can set either of these in your vimrc. Okay, those are some options that modify insert mode. Let's close this, and we'll enter insert mode. Okay, I'm going to pop in here, and I'm going to, well, first let's just show some modifications. Okay, I mean, I can enter some text here, and I can say, you know, this is my thing with stuff, and I will, let's say it's a function call, and it takes a 1, a 2, and a 3. Okay. Now, if I'm in insert mode, say I'm here and I'm in insert mode, I want to change the one to I don't know, something, right? So I can actually delete this with a Control W, right? That will delete the previous word. Now remember, we talked about what a word is, so I'm not going to go over that again. But it means you don't have to leave insert mode to delete. And once again, this is something that I don't generally use because I'm not smart enough to remember how to do it. But you can now replace this with something, right? And you're good. Another thing that's actually quite useful is when your indent level isn't correct, you can actually use Control T and Control D to manipulate it. So Control T will add a shift width to your code, okay? And Control D will remove it, okay? Now, the original shift width that I had set in Vim when I wrote this code was 2, and now I have it set to 4. So the shift widths actually don't make this work out so well. You'll see that this one here doesn't match up anymore, but if I change the shift width and add one, then I can make them line up. It's just what happens when you change your shift width partway through your coding life. Okay, so those two. But remember, Control D meant sort of half page down when you're in normal mode, as we've already learned this. But when you're in modes, now your key sequences are up for game. Like they're all up again, so that you can remap them to mean completely different things because you're in a completely different mode. That's Control D and Control T. You can move around in insert mode, and I'm going to show you that now. In the help, there is something called special keys. These help us move up and down and around and things like that. But this, okay, I'm gonna get a little religious on you. I'm an atheist, but religion in editors is a different thing altogether. So I've already said it in the welcome and in a couple other things I think as well. The arrow keys are all the way over there on the keyboard. I really don't see the point in doing that because a lot of the times I have to look because you've moved so far, and when you work on different keyboards and stuff like this, you move so far you have to put your head down to the key to make sure you're hitting the right one. I am not a fan of the arrow keys, nor am I a fan of these page up and page down and stuff like that. I really just like exiting insert mode, going to normal mode, and then moving around much more efficiently. But let's say you don't subscribe to my religion, and you actually really like those arrow keys. Well, here, okay, I'm using an arrow key. Ooh, feels dirty, but I'm doing it. You can do all kinds of stuff here. The mouse can come into play. The shift key can come into play. You can use page up and page down while you're in insert mode. I can't when I'm just going to set this modifiable so I can screw around with it. Okay, so I go into insert mode and I can move up and down and I can screw around. It sucks. It's a dumb way to do it, but you know, if it really, really works for you, go for it. More power to you. Okay, so that's the insert special stuff, which I totally don't subscribe to. Another thing that we can do is if we go to our previous file here, and let's say we actually want to insert a literal tab. Literally, because right now I have set expand tab that we talked about earlier, and it's just going to insert spaces for me, all right? And that actually inserted a bunch of spaces already. If I start typing, we can see in my lower left or lower right corner of my status line there, the 32 and the 0 by 20. That's the decimal and the hex code for what's under the cursor, and that means a space. Okay, this is not a tab. But let's say I wanted to insert a tab, and I'm in insert mode now. You hit Control V, and then you hit the next character. The next character you hit is going to be inserted literally. This is literally a tab, and we can see now it's the decimal and hex code 9, which is a tab. Okay, that's how you insert literal characters. Okay, these are all going to be tabs now. Okay, most of them are tabs. I'm a little confused. Oh, if it walks on a shift width, I think it depends on how you set up Vim to do your indenting. And I've set it up that I really like spaces, so it's going to keep them in certain respects. But in general, Control V lets you insert something literally. Now I want to touch on something that is unbelievably important, and is one of the best features of Vim. It's insert mode completion. Now this works in insert mode, okay? There's sort of two flavors of completion that I like to talk about. And there's the Control-N, Control-P type of completion, and then there's the Control-X family. I really would like you to read up on this stuff. It's not, I can't find it all useful for myself, but a lot of it is extremely useful. The bread and butter of completion is Control-N and Control-P. Let's take a quick look at that. If I want to do, let's say I wanted to insert the M name here. Well, I don't need to type that. I've typed enough at this point that Vim can help me out. And if I hit Control-N, it will look through a certain set of information to try and help me complete that. And you can see that it's popped up a window here, a pop-up window with a lot of things that I can use to complete this based on things that I've already written down. And it's going to use it in sort of an order, and M underscore name happens to be the next thing it finds, because I hit Control-N, which means it's going to find it in the forward direction. Okay? If I hit Control-P, let's just get rid of this stuff, and I hit Control-P, it's going to find it in a reverse direction. Now, in this case, it's actually working inside the same file, and M name actually is much, it's actually at the bottom of the file too. It's the last thing that's seen. Okay? So it's going to do both. So you see, this is the last occurrence of that thing in the file. And so P goes to the bottom of the file and searches backwards. So it actually found it. But if you want to narrow it down, you can just say, okay, well, I want M and then say device, right? A D would do that for me. Okay? So that's the Control-N and Control-P are incredibly important. And what I'm going to do is I need to now show you how you can manipulate them. The complete option is very, very critical to how the N and P behave. So if you give this thing a comma-separated list of options, then that will tell Vim how you want this to work and in what order you want things to go. Now for myself, I have set complete as .wbt, which means it's going to go to the current buffer, which I find to be very important, and then buffers from other windows, and then other loaded buffers, okay, and then where is the T, damn it, and then, there we go, and then any tags that I happen to have. So, and there's other things in here you can use. I found them to be unuseful for me, so I don't use them. One of the ones specifically, I think there were files that it could scan, all the included files, which is, you know, I here, okay, and D. But I work generally with so many files that it's just not worth it for me. So you can set this up to suit yourself, okay, and it really, really helps make this thing work really well. I like the fact that it goes from my current buffer first. Anything in there is preferred. And then it goes for other things in Windows, which is basically anything visually I'm working on. And then it will go and look for things that are hidden, buffers behind the current windows. And then, of course, any tags that we still have yet to discuss. We've only talked about them in terms of documentation. Okay, so that's completion. Very, very powerful stuff for the N and P. Let's move on to something a little even better, I guess. What you can do is, if you're saying to yourself, well, what I want to do is I want to write some code here, and let's just say it's a function, right? And I need to make another call. I need to make a duplicate call to this MIDI code here. What have I done? Sorry. I gotta watch what I'm doing. Believe it or not, ladies and gentlemen, I have something sitting on my keyboard right now to try and cool off my laptop while it does this, and it just shifted and it was setting my keys all over the place. So let's do this again. Let's say I want to do this MIDI object getString property call, which is above. What I can do is I can use Control-X, Control-L, and that completes full lines that match this line. Now that means it has to match at the beginning. So you can see right here it has chosen exactly what I wanted it to do. Right? This is exactly the line that I wanted. but it has to match in a regular expression kind of way. So if I had started with, let's say, I don't know, this, and then did this, it's not going to match anything because it's matching a whole line. Okay. Now if I do a control or a control P, right, then it's still not going to because I'm actually still in X mode. Sorry. Control P would help me do that. All right. But you would probably want to tag for this or something else. But the point is that Control X, Control L allows you to complete lines. Okay. And you have to still start it. Okay. So there's a complete line that has been matched and completed. The other thing that I like with Control X, and there are others, but these are the big ones, is file completion. If I do an include, and let's say I do a users, Quinn, code, experimentation, now I know that I've got enough information for Vim to do something intelligent for me, and I can use Control X, Control F. And I want experiments.old, okay? And then, you know, I want to say, okay, well, what's the next thing in here? Okay. Oh, MIDI's good. Let's go with MIDI. Okay, so MIDI, and then I'm not sure what else it is, so let's try this. Pull ourselves back into this, and I want the MIDI port. Okay, and I'll just complete that like that. The point is that it'll complete things that are on the file system, and you always want to make sure that the file that you're talking about is actually referenced properly. So you would have to go and make sure that it's correct. But with Control X, Control F, Vim will do that for you. You can't really make a mistake because it's completing for you. If it can't find what you've typed, it's not going to help you. It's going to say, I don't know what you're talking about. Okay? So these are some of the completions that are important. Now, that's it. That's all we're going to cover for insert mode. Please read the insert.txt. Go through there. There are other little nuggets in there that are important. I'm not covering them all. It's a couple of thousand lines, plus there's other kinds of insert mode mappings and everything like that. There is a lot of things you can do in insert mode, believe it or not. And I know it doesn't seem that way when you first start, but there's a lot of power there. So have a look. We're going to move on to some other modes coming up, and I'll see you then. Take it easy.